I decided that I would become an artist, which was definitely very different from an engineer. So my parents were like, what? But it all worked out. So now I'm here.
Hi, my name is Mouminatou Thiaw. I'm this year's Curatorial Fellow at the Frist Museum, and I'm sitting here with the LaJuné McMillian.
And hi, my name is LaJuné McMillian. I'm a new media artist and creative technologist showing the Portal's Keeper here at the Frist Museum.
Thank you so much for coming today. We're so excited to have you here and to be able to hear more from you about this beautiful and really special project that you've put together. Also, congratulations on this big show that you have. It's one of your biggest to date, so we're really honored to be able to share this experience with you. So many questions, I'm like, where to start? First, I kind of wanted to get a sense of your background. You're working in tech, or you're working with a lot of technology, with a lot of different computer programming. So I was wondering if you could share a bit of your connection with technology and what draws you to it as a creative medium.
Yeah, sure. So I think the first time I was interested in working with technology was in high school. So basically I started taking computer programming classes while I was in school. And yeah, I was just really hooked. I really, really loved my professor, Dr. Safko. And from there, I started actually getting a little bit even into robotics, and I started a robotics club. And so yeah, I think after that, I didn't really know what I wanted to do in college, but I decided on a major, and that major was mechanical engineering. But as soon as I got to school, I realized, first of all, that I was very behind in a lot of subjects. But then also, I think being comfortable in a space, being comfortable in engineering school, both being Black and being femme presenting, it was very stressful. So I asked myself in that moment, I was like, okay, I could do two things. I could, push myself through this program, and I could graduate, and against the odds, and then also against people telling me I couldn't do something, which is I think one of the things that people tell us all the time. It's you have to just keep going, or I could quit and not do this and find out something that I really want to do, that I actually want to make that sacrifice for. So I stopped doing that program, and I just fell into digital media. So that was another program that I didn't really know much about. And when I joined that program, I was just mind blown. I didn't know that you could make art with technology. At that point, I thought that you would just make tools, or that you would just make things that are practical. But to actually make things that allow you to dive into questions around why we're making, or why we're interacting with, or how we interact with these tools, that was something very new to me. So yeah, I think within the next year, I decided that I would become an artist, which was definitely very different from an engineer. So my parents were like, what? But it all worked out. So now I'm here.
I love that. So you also have a history with figure skating. You're a trained figure skater, and you also coach others to figure skate. How does that practice of yours interplay with your creative process, with your choreography? And I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so skating, I started skating when I was 9, and I just loved everything about it. I think this idea of just flying through the air, and then also gliding on like the blades, like that just like really, that like skating, figure skating was my first love, I think. Like even though I loved the sport so much, I also was, you know, within a very like entrenched in like, you know, white communities, and it really like deeply affected me. It affected my body image, it affected my sense of self. And it was just so weird that something I love so much could also bring so much pain and tragedy. And so I think that it actually connects a lot to my relationship with the tech world, because it's very similar, you know? But like I said before, like realizing what you would make a sacrifice for, like I would make it for skating. I would make it for, you know, making art with technology. And so yeah, in many ways, I think skating prepared me for how I move through and navigate through the world today. Choreography-wise, I feel like, or movement-wise, I feel like skating, it's really, like one of the things that you learn is you learn how to find your center, and you have to use that to spin, to jump, to do many different movements. And so when I quit, actually, and then I came back, I actually just started skating again for myself again. I realized, oh my gosh, like I lost like my center. And skating's one of those things that if you don't do it, you will lose it. So yeah, so I lost a lot of my, I lost a lot of the things that I knew how to do. And so right now I'm in a season of relearning. And a lot of actually what the show is about too is this idea of learning and what it means to learn and what it means to relearn. And so yeah, I think that, and then also like what it means to be gentle with yourself through that learning process, because learning in general is it can be a traumatic, but not necessarily, like I don't use that word in like a bad way. Like I don't necessarily think that all trauma is bad. Like sometimes, you know, growing pains like exist. So what does it mean to sort of build worlds, build spaces where you can grow and move through that pain in the safest way or in the most loving way possible?
That's really beautiful and really profound about learning and making space for love-centered growth. So what is the portal? Speaking of spaces, spaces of love, spaces of growth, spaces that you carve out in maybe predominantly white spaces or predominantly male spaces or whatever. What is the portal?
Yeah, I mean, you just said it right there. I think that it's the idea of this portal is this idea that if the world is not built for me, then I have to build it for myself. So that's what I'm going to do. And so maybe I have to learn and meet who that community is, and then together we nourish that space together. And so yeah, I think I call it, I think like the first time I really saw my work as portals was in 2021. I got to do a live motion capture performance of one of my projects called Movement Portraits. And so essentially, what was so beautiful about it was I was working with these 5 performers, and they're abstract documentaries, so you hear parts about their lives and their movement histories and journeys, but then we got to project their movements and their documentaries onto the Brooklyn Public Library. So it was like this large projection mapped experience. And when I saw it, it was so interesting to me because the project is part of a longstanding library project called Black Movement Library, which essentially is this network of performances, archives, and conversations around Black movement in digital spaces, but also through the world. So when I got that opportunity to project the Black Movement Library onto the Brooklyn Public Library, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a portal to a future library. And so from there, I got to think a little bit more deeply about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, maybe these visuals that I'm creating are portals into Black liberated realities. Because I'm a believer that our freedom and our liberation exists all around us. We just have to tap into it, and we have to commit to it, which is very, very difficult. And it is a process and a journey, and it is a commitment. So yeah, and it's really hard to do it if you're alone, but if you do it together with somebody else, or if you make a group out of it and you decide to practice that together, even if we live within capitalism or colonialism or different systems of oppression, we can decide to opt out together. So for me, that's the aspect of world building. It's that community building aspect where we together refuse. We have acts of refusal, and then we also have acts of care and being together, and yeah, working through life together. So yeah, I think like that's the portal, you know. But I'm also still learning what the portal is too. Like, I don't know the ins and outs of all of this, you know. I still live my everyday life, and I'm walking through the world just as everybody else. So I haven't figured out freedom, you know. I haven't figured out all of those things just yet. But I think that it's nice to know that it's there for me as I can and as I'm allowed to move through it.
It's amazing. Thank you for sharing. Part of your language around technology is reminding me of your inclusion and the importance of community in your process. You speak about motion capture software as a witness, and I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so essentially, one of the things with technology and a lot of different tools that we use is the language that we use around it, and how that language also contributes to how we engage with those tools. So when I think of the word capture, I think of violence, honestly. And so just thinking about that and thinking about what these tools can do and what they're used for and where they come from, I'm like, oh, this is actually not so good. So what does it mean now to not necessarily say, no, I won't use this tool, but to re-engage with it by breaking down the power dynamics? And so I think one of the ways to do that is by changing the language and how we talk about technology. So that's when I thought of the term motion witnessing, because if I think about the technology as a witness rather than a capturer, then maybe I can also take some of the need for the movements to be perfect too. Yeah, a lot of my work is very abstract, and I allow the motion capture and motion witnessing. I allow a lot of what's being recorded to be up to the machine. So sometimes there are glitches, and I keep the glitches, and I just allow it to be what it is instead of having to go back and clean it, because that's a whole nother process. Like in traditional motion capture pipelines, essentially you record the movement, but then you keep recording it until you get the cleanest capture, and then even from there you go into another software, and then you clean it even more as you apply it to the body. And so for me, I allow the data to be messy, and I allow the computer to be imperfect.
Yeah, I think that part of your creative world really felt so brilliant to me. It's like those spaces of allowance and what the incapturable thing is where the portal is. I love that. Like that's where, would you say that's also where the Blackness manifests?
Yeah, no, exactly. Like I like to also say, you know, Blackness can't be captured. And so in that way, it's like an affirmation that, like an added affirmation, yeah.
That's really cool. So back to what we were talking about learning, and the learning process being one that's love-centered and also with language around power. I'm like connecting those to go back to your poetry and your meditations. So there's this dynamic between the child and the spirit, and when you were talking about learning, it sparked the form of the two dialogues. So the child has more repetition in the form, how you wrote, and the spirit has a different formal composition of the way that the spirit works. What was your process of creating that dialogue and the kind of repetition in the childlike perspective, and how does repetition factor into your learning?
I think for me, when I was writing the prayers, I sort of just allowed them to come to me. I wasn't really like, oh, now I'm gonna repeat this, like I need to say it. I mean, but some things, you know, sometimes you gotta say something again, you know. So I was like, you know, so I was just allowing them to come, like honestly. So sometimes the prayers would come to me through, like I'm also a part of like different like groups. So I'm also a part of Brown Body, which is an amazing skating and dance company based in Minneapolis. And so part of the prayers were written during one of our residencies. So what's really beautiful about Brown Body is that we come together and we really understand like what it means to be a Black figure skater. And so actually the first prayer was born from that like one of the residencies there. And so from there, I just allowed the prayers to come to me. So they would come to me, like sometimes I'd be walking down, like literally I was like walking down a lane. And, oh, actually let me go back. So basically I was on a panel one time. And on the panel, that's when I first said, I just want to know where I'm going when I disappear. Because I was like, I don't know, like I'm not gonna lie, I'd be disappearing, like, I'd be like, people be like, where are you? And I'm like, I don't know. Stop calling me. You know, so like, I don't know, I'm not gonna lie, I'd be dissociating, like I'd be gone. So, I was like sort of like in and out of that conference. Like I had needed a lot of time to just be by myself because I think I was just very overstimulated because there's just like a lot of like peopling, and I just like wasn't, a lot of the times I wasn't in the mood, so I just would disappear. So then what was so cool about it was like on the panel though, I was relating that disappearance to Unreal Engine. So like in Unreal, what's so interesting about it is that, and also, well, not really in Photoshop, but in Unreal, the color black, like when you attach it to the opacity node, it turns the material clear. So in that way, blackness is clear. Blackness is transparent. So I just want to know where I'm going when I disappear, like I'm going into blackness. Which is so interesting and so cool to me. So that's where I got that. And then literally, I was walking down a street like one night, and then I was like, I want to know where my voice travels when I'm silenced. And I was like, wow, okay. And so I would just like basically walk around, allow parts of the prayers to come to me. And then also just through like going through different experiences, and then after the experience, just journaling. And then also, you know, sitting like at my ancestor altar, like allowing them to come through that way. So there were just many ways where parts of the prayers were coming. And it took, like I started writing those prayers in 2020. So it took a good 4 years for them to get completed, where they are now, yeah.
I'd love to know more about the creative process behind the portal, this child portal. From writing to choreographing, and if there are parts that you had left for improvisation, what's your creative process for the project that you'll be showing us?
Yeah, so honestly, like, it's all improvisation and like reciting the prayers and like, you know, just allowing spirit to flow through me. But the process of making the work, it actually started as a 2-channel piece. And then from there, I was just really interested in adding another layer to make it a triptych. So in the work, it actually has like 3 characters. So the first character is spirit, the second character is child, and then the third character is me as I am now. And so we're all interacting with each other and sort of moving through the space. And yeah, it starts off with child and child's prayer, and then it sort of moves to spirit's prayer, and then it moves to me as I see it now. And yeah, I mean, it's honestly been very like, the process has been very organic. You know, the way that I work is very iterative. So I, like, it's very, like, how do I explain? So basically, like, working in tech and also working as an artist, it's very hard to make something and just have it be. So it's not like I'm just like making a painting and like, here's the painting, you know. It's very much just like I work as I go. And so it's like, okay, if I get this opportunity and I have this set of resources, what can come through with this environment that's nourishing for the project? So basically I go through like opportunities or spaces or wherever, and then I allow the pieces to slowly come together. And so yeah, and so it's very like process driven, but it's very slow. And I know some people don't like that. They're like, where is this? And I'm just like, I don't know. I'm sorry. Like, it's coming. Like, you know, you gotta let it marinate. So yeah, so I just like let it marinate. And honestly, it's like calmed me down a lot. Like, I realized I always remember that I'm an artist because I'm like, oh, like I also like, even though everyone's like, I'm just like, yeah, it's all good. Like, it's all gonna be great. So yeah, so I love when I can get into that flow state. And so yeah, so basically the process is like, it's very like organic, you know? All of the music actually was made during, well, most of it was made during a 10-day residency at Jacob's Pillow, where I got to invite 6 of my collaborators. And so we went up to Jacob's Pillow and literally we were just vibing, chilling. We were, one of my collaborators, Zealy Brown, she was cooking and so we got food, we're nourished, we're laughing, we're having fun. And then like the last 5 days, everyone's like, okay, like, you know, but then we come up with this 30-minute beautiful soundtrack because we all just flowed together, you know what I mean? We all just allowed each other to be. And one thing that I love in my process is this opportunity to allow people to bring themselves forward. And even if it's not like this, like it's not me like directing somebody and being like, oh, you gotta do this now, like you gotta do that, like you need to do, like, you know, so it's not me like directing people. I'm just like, no, come as you are and try to come as your most authentic self. And normally that's like the best thing ever. Like that's how you are able to get the real, true like feelings. Because also, you know, all of my collaborators, we're all good at different things. You know, I could do a little singing tune here and there, but I'm not trained. You know, I don't play any musical instruments. I don't like, I'm not good at everything, but I have an ear and I have an eye for things. So when I get to collaborate with people who are like really, really good at what they do, I just allow them to be good at what they do, you know? And I'm just like, okay, like, how can we sort of work together on that? And so yeah, like it's process driven. It's me also like taking a step back. I'm knowing that I'm not the best at everything, and allowing what comes up, what also all of our spirit guides are like guiding us to do, like allowing it to show itself. So yeah.
I just wanted to ask about the presence of nature in your work, the light fractals, like cloud-like things, and also even bird sounds, leaves. So kind of playing into the idea of an organic environment, a come-as-you-are environment, and also in connection with technology. How important is the sharing of technology and nature in that space?
Yeah, so I think for me, like, one thing that I want to also make clear is that all of these technologies, all of these tools, even though they may not look it, even though it is artificial, all of the materials come from the earth, first and foremost. And so one of the questions I have it's more of like a lifelong question to answer, is like, what if computers could return to the earth? Like, what if they could give back to the earth? I'm really interested in like ecosystems. I think right now how we engage with and build tools and technologies, it's all very extractive. It's all very like, it's just not good for the earth. It just takes and then it changes and then it doesn't give back. And so right now I can only visually like show that process, but I think my next step or my next goal would be to really dive deep into what that answer would be. Yeah, because one thing that I know about manifesting is that, it's not always going to come like right now, you know what I mean? But if you can visualize it, that means that it has a possibility of existing. And so just being able to create that possibility means that as I go on my journey, I'll be able to figure out the answer, maybe, But yeah, I think it's just a reminder. It's mainly a reminder that these tools come from the earth, and that we need to really think about that and not like continuously add on to those really awful things that are happening.
Yeah, I feel like the slowness of your process as well. People are always asking the artist, when is it done? It's kind of an extractive relationship between the artist and the public. And so even your steadfastness in the slow process and the giving yourself time for that feels to me like another site of resistance against that kind of extractive relationship.
Yeah, don't tell nobody here. Don't put that in it. But no, you're right. Though.
I mean, I'm also an artist.
Yeah, no. Yeah. And the thing is like the thing with art though, it's like I never want to. The most important thing I think for my work and for the work is that it is the work. You know what I mean? If I'm operating on somebody's timeline, then it no longer becomes the work, because I'm no longer I'm like I know I could probably like get some better like time management skills like that. There's always room for time management skills, you know what I mean? But I also love this idea, like for me, like when the work comes, it comes so fast. Like it'll either like just happen, or it'll happen slowly, but it's like this moment where time in itself collapses, and things just get done. You know what I mean? And I want to get to that space, because for me, it's not the work if I'm not there. It's something different. It's like one of the things that I was actually I feel like maybe like a year or two ago, I felt like I was starting to get into that cycle of, okay, I just need to churn it out. But then I realized I was like, oh, like this is no longer becoming the work, this is something different. My job is to do the work. And actually doing the work is not even just having the product, right? Like for me, doing the work, like for this show, I had to do a lot of therapy. Like I was like, you know, that's the work, like doing the therapy, the performance, saying the prayers out loud. Like I was so scared the first time saying all of those prayers out loud. Like that's doing the work for me, like speaking my truth, that's the work. Showing up for myself, that's the work. Trying to be a better person each day, that's the work. And then allowing that process to show itself as a product, you know? Like I think that my work is really the process, and then the product is just showing, oh, this is the years-long journey that this person has done, you know? Like to have gotten to this moment, like is very, yeah, no, I'm just very, very grateful, you know? So yeah, it is like, because we live like within a, you know, a capitalist system, you know, so many different types of relationships are going to be extractive in nature, because everybody is like, we need to just get it done. We need to just get it, and it's like, okay, it's gonna get done. But for me, it's like how are we gonna get it done, you know? Like that's the important part. And it's very much just like, within that how, there needs to be some point of personal, spiritual, and yeah, just like mental growth, you know? Like I just like my job, like I also had realized this in 2020. I was just like, my main job is to heal, you know? And healing work is a lifelong process. Healing work is like, yeah, it's like never ends, it's never ending. And so showing and like allowing people in on that journey, and like this is how I'm healing, like that's pretty much what the show is about. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yay, thank you.
I have 1,000 more questions still, but I'll let you.
Yay, no, this is great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see it all come together, and really honored that you're sharing such a powerful and vulnerable show with us.
Oh, thank you so much. Yay.